Tonight on CTV News at 5, the school year just days away. The Premier weighs in on spending scandals at school boards, calling out a Catholic board in Brant. Plus, a different approach to deter robberies. After a couple violent events, a jewelry store in Ancaster installs new technology to try and keep staff safe. And we sit down with the Associate Medical Officer of Health for Wellington Dufferin Guelph Public Health ahead of International Overdose Awareness Day. CTV News at 5 starts right now. Good afternoon and thank you for joining us. Premier Doug Ford says Ontarians are done with spending scandals at school boards. The comments come just a few days after the education minister dangled the idea of doing away with elected trustees. And as CTV's Spencer Turcott tells us, the Brant Haldimand Norfolk Catholic District School Board found itself in Ford's crosshairs.
Ford made the comments yesterday during an unrelated announcement near Caledon. He referred to the trustees in Brant as some of the bad ones due to that costly and controversial trip to Italy. Just to jog everyone's memory, last July, 4 trustees from the Brant Haldimand Norfolk Catholic District School Board flew to Italy. On that trip, they racked up a bill of nearly $190,000 buying religious artwork for 2 new schools. The Ministry of Education ordered a review of the school board and the trip. It was found the trustees spent money on luxury cars, high-end hotel stays, and in an email to CTV News, the minister's press secretary said the current school board governance structure is outdated and needs to be modernized. All options are on the table, the email explained, including the role of trustees as a whole, comments that were backed by Ford yesterday.
Last time I went to schools, it's the kids' paintings and everything else that are on the wall, not $100,000 of Italian artwork. So we're going to hold them accountable. We're going to make sure they balance their books. And I know Minister Klander is doing a phenomenal job.
At 6, the president of the Canadian School Boards Association will weigh in on those comments. Spencer Turcott, CTV News, Kitchener.
There's a looming policy change from the United States that has small business owners in Canada bracing for higher costs. As of tomorrow, the U.S. will scrap its exemption on duties for lower cost shipments. Let's bring in CTV's Leanne Evans for a closer look at this and some other news we're following this hour. Leanne.
Colton, thank you. As of Friday, all U.S.-bound shipments worth $800 or less will be hit with duties. That's forcing tough choices for Canadian businesses. Absorb it or pass it on. Millions of duty-free packages enter the U.S. daily, but with the change coming, postal operations in at least 25 countries are suspending U.S. shipping.
My worst fear is that people just decide not to buy at all. Just because the price is uncertain, whether they're going to get it or not is uncertain.
Canada Post is not suspending U.S. shipping. Instead, they'll be using a third party to collect and send the duties directly to U.S. Customs. Also tonight, Canada Post urging the Canadian Union of Postal Workers to revisit their offers following their most recent bargaining session Wednesday. Canada Post says the gap between the parties is substantial and that the union has added new demands while hardening their position on several existing demands. The Crown Corporation says it received counter offers from the union last week in response to the corporation's best and final offers in May. Canada Post says it remains open to reviewing and discussion amended proposals. On Tuesday, Canada Post reported a massive $407 million loss before tax in its second quarter. We'll bring you the latest on these stories and more in the next hour. For now, Colton, back over to you.
All right, thank you, Leanne. And Alexandra Pinto joining me now to talk a little bit about this weather. Alex, a rainy day.
Yeah, and really heavy downpours at times, too. We could hear it just outside of our studio throughout the afternoon on and off. And hopefully you were not someone who got caught in the rain, because it was not a fun afternoon.
Oh, I believe it. Yeah, no, didn't go outside at all. Just avoided.
At this point for us, though, you know, mainly some cloud cover, which is pretty nice to see. We're getting a little bit of a break from that shower, but you could see that system. It was quite widespread earlier as it makes its way towards the east and a little bit further north this hour as well. But noticeably cooler conditions, 16 right now here in Kitchener, Waterloo, 16 in London. If you're there and if you're in Sarnia, 17 degrees. So we're definitely below our normal for this time of year, and we are definitely starting to feel some cooler air start to move on in. And as we take a live look from north of Waterloo, we can see a little bit of that sun finally peeking through the clouds right now. But yes, it was quite dark, quite cloudy, and quite a bit of rain we saw earlier today. Colton.
Nice to see it clear up a little bit.
Finally.
Thank you, Alex. And here's what you need to know. One person's trash could be another person's treasure. Put your unwanted items at the curb for others to check out in the Royal City. The Goods Exchange weekend in Guelph kicks off tomorrow afternoon at 5 and runs through until Monday night at 7. We'll be right back.
Download the CTV News app and stay on top of local stories as they unfold.
We go to a dramatic scene unfolding.
Customize your feed and watch live wherever you are. ctvkitchener.ca, your home for news.
Well, International Overdose Awareness Day is on Sunday, meant to bring a global community together to take action on the devastating and tragic impact of the toxic drug and overdose crisis. For more on this, let's bring in Dr. Matthew Tenenbaum, the Associate Medical Officer of Health at Wellington Dufferin Guelph Public Health. Dr. Tenenbaum, first I want to ask you, what are healthcare professionals seeing in relation to overdoses in your area?
Certainly, overdoses are still very much a part of our experience. Drug poisonings are still very much something we're seeing in our community. We've been dealing with them as a community for, a decade or so now as a major issue. We have seen some perhaps decreasing numbers over the past couple of years in terms of number of people dying as a consequence, number of people going to the emergency department or hospital as a consequence, but it's still a very significant issue in our community, and it affects people in the hospital, in the emergency room, but also healthcare providers in the community who try to help people who are experiencing addiction to or dependence on some of these substances.
Yeah, there's a lot of people involved, so it makes sense that it would extend to the healthcare professionals as well. Supervised consumption sites were closed earlier this year. Has that had an impact on the number of overdoses?
So right now, we know that we're one of the communities that's transitioning from having a supervised consumption site to one of the new Heart Hub models, which comes with some investment from the provincial government. As this change has been happening, of course, it does change a lot of how people access services in our community. We've been trying to keep an eye on the data to see if there's anything we're seeing that suggests there's something we need to act on differently as a community. We know we're hearing a lot of people feeling like they are connected differently to the health system as the changes to services occur. But we're not seeing any large-scale change to the number of drug poisonings or things like that in our community. It's still something we're monitoring closely, but we're still in a similar context as we were earlier this year.
Okay. When it comes to a toxic supply in the community, how do health units discover this and track it?
So a lot of it comes from data we get from our community partners. We in public health are responsible for overseeing, from a data perspective, what's going on in our community, and really developing a good understanding about what people are experiencing when they're going through a drug poisoning event. And we have a system set up with partners where they can submit information to us when people experience a poisoning, or they hear about changes to supply from particular dealers or vendors. We also are linked into data from the province and police seizures of drugs, things like that, inform our understanding, as well as where we can test drugs as a community. We do see the results from those. And what we see is that over recent years in particular, there has been significant issue with the drug supply becoming more toxic, less safe. A lot of issues where these substances are contaminated by different kinds of substances that are mixed in. That can make it more challenging when someone is experiencing an overdose or a drug poisoning to reverse it using our usual methods. The things we do focus a lot on opioids, but if those opioids are mixed in with other substances, people can experience other symptoms that are more challenging to address.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. A couple overdose awareness community events happened this afternoon, one in Orangeville and one in Guelph. How important are these events?
I think they are really important. I think that for people who use substances and who are touched by this issue in our community, a lot of these people experience stigma, a lot of these people experience isolation. In some cases, they don't have family or friends they can rely on as a consequence of what they're going through. I know that events like this are really important to building community among people, helping people feel seen and heard by their peers, helping health partners like us have ways to connect with people who are experiencing these kinds of things. I know from our perspective as well, as a health unit, as well as the perspective of many of our partners, events like these are really important because it helps us to hear the lived experiences and the stories of people who are living this issue day in, day out. It helps us ground our work, ground our understanding. Not all of us who participate in the response deal with this on a personal level, but it is a way for us to stay connected, to understand it, so that we can orient ourselves in the most helpful way possible.
And kind of speaking of those people, if someone knows someone who uses or someone who uses themselves, what can they do to help keep them safe?
The most important things, if you are using, is to not use alone and to try and go slow, in particular if the substance you're using is from a new source or you're not sure what's in it. As I said before, we are dealing in recent years with significantly worsening contamination of the drug supply with new substances that can lead to unpredictable kinds of overdoses or drug poisonings. So really using with someone around you who can monitor you in case you are overdosing and therefore respond is important. We and other partners are involved in providing naloxone in the community, which is a drug that can be administered to someone who's experiencing an overdose to help reverse that overdose and keep that overdose from killing them. So that is something we really want to make sure is available to anyone who might be using or anyone who is with people who might be using, because that can save lives.
All very important information to know. Well, that's about all the time we have. Thank you for joining me, Dr. Matthew Tenenbaum. That's Dr. Matthew Tenenbaum, the Associate Medical Officer of Health at Wellington Deterring Guelph Public Health.
Thank you very much.
Still ahead on CTV News at 5, a different approach to deterring robberies. Why a jewelry store in Ancaster is using a unique technology in the business. And here's what you need to know. Forefathers Brewing is hosting a free festival to celebrate their 10th anniversary. Enjoy beer specials, a barbecue, and family activities. This event will be at the brewery on Saturday. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
When you see it happen, send it to CTV News. Text 10400. From your screen to ours. Text 10400.
Alex Pinto back here to talk about the weather, and she told you that it was going to happen today.
I told you.
And it did.
It did. The rain came down pretty heavy at times too, so hopefully you didn't get caught in the rain. We did get an update from our dog walker who said our pup was a little hesitant at first to go outside this afternoon, but eventually had some fun in some puddles. So
long time to dry off? A little bit of fur?
Hopefully he's dry by the time we get home.
Oh yeah, that's important.
But as we take a look outside, lucky for us, at least here in Kitchener, yeah, we are starting to see a little bit of blue sky there. Still some cloud cover. In some areas you can see quite dark still. This isn't necessarily the case for everyone. Showers that we saw earlier, some areas, especially if you're in GTHA, so Hamilton, Brantford, Brant, potentially seeing a little bit of wet weather this hour right now, but that should potentially pass once we get past the 6 o'clock hour. And then once we get into the rest of the evening, hopefully, yeah, we get to be in the clear officially. So a little bit of cloud cover expected to stick with us as we go into the evening. But take a look at that system that did pass us here in Kitchener-Waterloo. It is making way towards the east, and it's actually starting to go a little bit further north this hour, but several areas also under that risk to see a thunderstorm today as well. Sarnia this afternoon, a little bit later, around 7 o'clock or so, you could potentially see a little bit of heavier rain, downpour at times with that risk of a thunderstorm. Windsor, Chatham, Kent also potentially going to see that a little bit later in the evening. But as we get into the overnight hours, some clearing and potentially some cloud cover on and off. That is expected as we start your Friday and look forward to the long weekend. But the good news, when we look at that long weekend, it looks like we're going to be in store for some pretty nice sunshine. So some areas, though, could see a little bit of scattered shower activity before we get to that point. So right now, noticeably cooler. 17 it is right now in Kitchener-Waterloo, 16 in London, also 17 this hour in Hamilton. And when we look at the humidex, definitely starting to feel a little bit of that humidity, of course, from the rain that we did see. So 20 degrees in KW this hour, 21 if you're in Toronto. It feels more like 20 in Hamilton. So especially when we see a system like that, it's definitely quite muggy out there. We did hit our high of 18 degrees today. That was set back at around 1 o'clock or so this afternoon. So definitely below the normal for this time. We should be sitting around that 23-degree mark for this time of year. 36 degrees. That was our record high back in 1948. And in 1982, it was just 2 degrees. That was our overnight low. But we are getting into that a single-digit territory as we get into the overnights now. That sunrise, 6:41, and that sun inching closer to setting at 8 o'clock now. So overnight, 6 degrees is our expected overnight low, so quite cool. Partly cloudy again, just a slight chance of some shower activity. We're seeing about a 30% chance just sticking around as we get into the overnight. And then for tomorrow, partly cloudy conditions expected to stick with us. In the afternoon, we potentially could see about 30% chance of showers. But once that cloud does pass, take a look at your Saturday and Sunday. Beautiful sunny conditions in store and fairly comfortable temperatures as well. 22 degrees, that is our expected high for Saturday. 24 potentially it could get up to on Sunday, and even for your Monday at this point, 24 degrees. So not too bad. We are again noticing some cooler overnight conditions with at least a few days getting into that single-digit territory, but I'm sure many are not complaining. Definitely more manageable when we're not feeling that extreme heat and extreme humidity.
Oh, yeah. Definitely looking forward to that sunshine. Nice to see that on the weekend.
Oh, that'll be really nice.
Well, we have an update to a shooting we reported on yesterday. A 36-year-old man was sent to hospital around 2:30 yesterday afternoon in Kitchener. Police have 4 people in custody: a 36-year-old man, 31-year-old man, 20-year-old man, and a 40-year-old woman were arrested. Police say the man injured was taken to hospital outside of the region with non-life-threatening injuries. They believe this was a targeted incident. Anyone with information or video footage is asked to get in touch as the investigation continues.
Well, after a violent armed robbery last December, a jewelry store in Ancaster is stepping up its security measures with an anti-theft system growing in popularity. So in the event of a robbery, the smoke screen system fills a room with dense, non-toxic fog. It clouds people's vision and aims to really deter criminals from finishing the job. The owner of Ancaster Jewelers says it's an additional layer of protection, since there's no guarantee the store won't be robbed again.
If the hold-up button is pushed, they automatically disperse for 30 seconds with a non-toxic water vapor, but it's very dense, and you can't see your hand in front of your face. So you can't steal what you can't see.
CTV's Alexandra Hollick will have more on how the system works coming up at 6. The back-to-school countdown is officially on, with most students headed back into the classroom next week. Local school bus operators are preparing to ensure this year's fleet is ready for the region's young passengers. This week, school buses are hitting the roads for practice and preparation ahead of the next semester, with a number of measures in place to ensure before the fleet even hits the road, drivers are ready for whatever lies ahead. Autumn Washer is one of the hundreds of bus drivers in Waterloo Region. She says there are important safety features everyone should know about.
So the yellow lights are giving you a warning that we're going to be slowing down and coming to a stop, and then there will be children exiting the bus or entering the bus. And then the reds come on when we have opened the door and our stop sign comes out letting you know, please stop and give some space behind and in front of the bus so children can get where they're going.
Coming up tonight at 6, CTV's Ashley Bacon will have more on school bus safety measures and the penalties drivers could face if they break the rules.
And before we go to break, this one's exciting. We've got to tell you about a big honor for a big tree. This Kentucky coffee tree in Cambridge is the Reap Green Solutions Tree of the Year. Each year, the environmental charity holds a vote to recognize legacy trees in the community. The company says coffee trees are rare finds and a piece of history at roughly 100 years old and 30 meters tall. This year's winner stands as a giant on Main and Elgin Street North in Cambridge. And here's what you need to know. Join the Waterloo Regional Labor Council for a picnic this long weekend to celebrate workers, families, and community at Waterloo Park. It kicks off Monday from noon to 4. There will be good drinks, live music, and carnival games. Proceeds will go to the United Way Waterloo Region communities. In tonight's Digital Dive, the long weekend means some things will be closed on Monday for the Labor Day holiday. Our online team has you covered with a full list of what will still be open or closed in Waterloo Region, Guelph, and Brantford. Also remember, fireworks are not permitted in any of the cities or communities over the long weekend. To find out more, just scan the QR code in the corner of your screen or go to ctvnewskitchener.ca. Time now to take a look at our final 5 stories we're following today. A warning from the Elgin County Drowning Coalition after the death of an 80-year-old man at Little Beach in Port Stanley. Crews were called to the beach Friday afternoon. OPP say a man experienced a medical emergency and was found unresponsive in the water. He was brought back to shore where someone performed CPR. He was taken to hospital but did not survive. Coalition members say medical events like heart attacks are becoming more common in aquatic emergencies. The beach at Bellwood Lake Conservation Area is closed until further notice. The Grand River Conservation Authority consulted with Wellington Dufferin Guelph Public Health, who recommended closing the beach after suspected blue-green algae was spotted in the swimming area. The closure will be in place until the algae bloom has dispersed. A Diageo Crown Royal whiskey bottling plant near Windsor will be closing its doors in 2026 related to the ongoing tariff war. The company said its plan is to shift more of its bottling volume closer to U.S. customers. The operations from this plant will reportedly be moved to a facility in Quebec. Diageo is Amherstburg's largest employer, according to the town's mayor. Another late summer tradition is set to return this weekend, the Canadian International Air Show. Despite the gloomy weather, the Canadian Forces snowbirds could be spotted making their way to the Toronto Lakeshore as they prepare to take to the skies together. The 76th Canadian International Air Show runs Saturday through Monday. And with the long weekend here, the CFL is back with its Labor Day Classic rivalries. The Saskatchewan Roughriders will face the Winnipeg Blue Bombers on Sunday, and in the run-up to the game, the Bombers are poking a little fun at their Western rivals. A handful of billboards like this have gone up in Regina, saying friends don't let friends wear green, alongside images of some celebrating Blue Bombers fans and a Roughriders fan who looks like he might be feeling a little bit stressed out. On Monday, Calgary hosts Edmonton and Toronto visits Hamilton. It's always a great time of year to see the Labor Day Classics back. I'll be watching all of those. That's our time. Thanks so much for watching. Leanne Evans will be back at 6 o'clock with more news, but first, here's CTV National News.